Anyone travelling to Paestum in southern Italy isn't necessarily prepared for heavy rain. On his visit in March 1787, it seems, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe didn't encounter any rain. In fact, Germany's greatest writer never even mentioned the weather. But at first, the mass of long rectangular temples appalled him. The initial impression could only be one of astonishment. I found myself in a totally alien world. But then he understood. He was standing in front of buildings that changed his concept of beauty for all time. In less than an hour, I had warmed to the sight. Indeed, I praised the genius that allowed me to see such well-preserved remains. Originally called Poseidonia, Paestum was founded around 600 BC by settlers from Asia Minor. Poseidonia was not one of the oldest, nor one of the biggest cities in Magna Graecia, as southern Italy was known in those days. But it was Greek nevertheless, and anyone visiting Paestum today is no longer entirely in Italy. With their heart, they are in Greece. For centuries, the temple ruins of Paestum in Campania had slumbered in obscurity. History had passed them by, fortunately. Amazingly, they were only rediscovered a short time before Goethe paid his visit. There was no need to excavate them. They were simply standing there, behind a cyclopean wall nearly 5 kilometers long. The complex only came to light when the temples were found to be in the way of a road that was being built through Campania. The discovery generated excitement all over Europe. Every aristocratic Englishman on his grand tour, every studious German on an educational journey just had to pay a visit to Paestum, where they learned what a Greek temple is. And when Jacob Burckhardt's Cicerone appeared in the mid-19th century, the 1,000-page guide to all of Italy's art monuments, page 1 contained the following comment. There can be no doubt as to which building deserves to be mentioned first. Burckhardt was referring to the biggest of the 3 temples at Paestum. Back then, it was thought to be a temple to Neptune. Today, it's regarded as a temple to Apollo. Anyone browsing in Burckhardt's Cicerone is struck by the niggardly, almost offending brevity with which he describes works of art. Never a word too many. But it shows how much Paestum meant to him when we read, "What the eye sees here are not mere stones, but living beings." At the sight of the temple, we quickly understand what Burckhardt meant. It seems to be in a kind of motion. Long after visiting Paestum, in his play Faust, Goethe wrote, "Yea, I believe that all the temple sings." Today we think we know how the Greeks achieved that effect. The entire building reveals not a single straight line, and what seems to be straight is in reality curved. All the elements are interlinked and interact with one another. The pillars are bulbous, narrowing as they rise. The fluting, the vertical grooves, enhances the impression of upwards movement. This overwhelming earth force meets a worthy opponent. The entablature is so massive that the ends of the columns are compacted in a form known as a Doric capital. The horizontal grooving creates the impression of the stone having a skin, which folds here as the interior is compressed. The remaining force of the columns is absorbed by the pediment. Its angle corresponds to the bulge of the capitals, the entasis of the pillars, their thickness and number, etc. A single change anywhere would involve further changes throughout. This is what every visitor here feels. It's also why everyone says that somehow the temple lives. Magnificent ruins have been preserved at Paestum, yet we have no idea who lived and built here. Apart from a single reference to an athlete from Poseidonia who performed outstandingly at the Olympic Games of AD 468, we have nothing to go on. He was called Parmenides, by the way. And that was also the name of the great son of the ancient city we're going to visit next. It lies barely 50 kilometers south of Paestum. A hiker wandering over the chain of hills as he heads for the sea from one of the mountain villages of Cilento could make a surprising and breathtaking discovery. Where, he might ask in amazement, did these bricks I keep stepping on come from? After all, no one dumped them here. These rocks that have been lining my way for some time now are not here by accident. And this cleft in the rock didn't occur naturally. It looks like a water conduit. Is this a city wall, perhaps? And aren't these temple steps? That, roughly, is how Elea was rediscovered. Known to the Romans as Velia, hidden under bushes and the ruins of later buildings, it had long gone unrecognized. There are no temples still standing in Elea. They have all crumbled. Stone by stone, fragment by fragment, archaeologists are slowly recovering Elea from the earth. Philosophers down the ages have held the name Elea in high esteem. A bronze needle of Roman origin. Yet no one knew the exact location of ancient Elea, the city where Parmenides taught. And what he taught occupies the minds of philosophers even today. The grey porous layer, by the way, is volcanic ash from Mount Vesuvius, from the eruption which destroyed Pompeii and Herculaneum in 79 AD. What can the human mind know? What is being? Is being eternal? Does it have a beginning? Can beings have any knowledge of not being? Indeed, what can beings know at all? The philosophy of Parmenides, who was born in Elea around 500 BC, focuses on such questions. This gate, the Porta Rosa as it's known today, is the most impressive structure still standing in Velia. Built in the 4th century BC, the gateway post-dates Parmenides somewhat. Yet it inevitably makes the visitor think of the philosopher. Maidens conducted horses and chariots through it. The didactic poem from which we know his philosophy begins with his passage through the gate. This is the gate to the journeys of night and day. Beyond it, the goddess Dike awaited the philosopher. She received me spontaneously and took my right hand and addressed me as follows: "My young hero, consort of immortal charioteers, even of steeds that bear you as you come to our halls, hail, for in no wise evil was the destiny that escorted you forth to come." The Eleans loved things which, at first glance, seem meaningless. What's more, they loved contradictions. Parmenides coolly countered the prevalent thesis by Heraclitus that everything moves, nothing is at rest, with the statement that everything is one and stationary. And he also provided the logical proof. And it was at this point, perhaps, that Zeno, who was one of his pupils, regaled his listeners with the paradox of Achilles and the tortoise, and made them reflect. In a foot race, Achilles is unable to overtake the tortoise, which has a head start of a few meters. That's because when Achilles has run a few meters, the tortoise has advanced a little bit. And by the time Achilles has covered that short distance himself, the tortoise is already a touch further on. And this is repeated ad infinitum. The Philistine might simply shrug his shoulders at the paradox. But mathematicians began to search for a formula that refutes Zeno and proves that Achilles does indeed overtake the tortoise. It was only in modern times that they achieved this, yet they are still not totally sure that they've been successful. This cliff was once washed by the ocean, which long since receded, surrendering the land for settlement. Standing on it, like a hollow tooth, is a ruined fortress dating back to the 14th century, when the region was ruled by the House of Anjou. It stands, one can only grate one's teeth, on the steps of a temple that was either never completed or crumbled. The railway line running through the Temple Mountain is where the coast used to be. The small Romanesque church built by monks in the High Middle Ages is not only older than the ruined fortress, it's also more appealing. It stands above the Greek theatre, in the middle of the path that led into the temple area. It's as if the church wanted to act as a barrier to heathen gods descending to Christians. We have no idea what remained of the temples in those days. What we do know is that the monks were not short of building material. This bust of Parmenides was excavated here in Elea. It dates back to later Roman times. The Romans knew who he was and revered him. Of all places, archaeologists have placed the bust in the apse of the small militant church where the cross once stood. This was one battle, it would seem, that the little church lost. Everything is one and stationary. Nothing ceases to be.